Okay, now we want to talk about how life is organized. So every organism that is alive today or has become extinct in the past can be classified based on some of its properties. And we can think of that all organisms go into one big box called the domain. And inside of that one big box are multiple smaller boxes called kingdoms. And then inside of each of those kingdoms are boxes called phylums. And so we can take every organism and we can put it into one of these boxes. So I have just randomly picked out one type of organism, and I'm going to show you where this one organism falls in all of these different categories. So the first one is called the domain, and the particular domain in which this organism belongs it's called a eukaryote, and so that means it has membrane-bound organelles, such as mitochondria, for example, and the nucleus. And so an example of this kind of organism would be a euglena. Okay, then the next thing is, the next sub-level is called a kingdom, and for this particular organism, it is multicellular. So notice that the euglena up above was a single-celled organism. But this organism is a multicellular organism, like a flower. Okay, then the next one is, it is in the superphylum. So a superphylum would be above the phylum, but underneath the kingdom, and it's a deuterostomia. And so this means that as an embryo, the anus, or the butt, forms before the mouth, and the outer layer gives rise to the nervus and the epidermis. And so an example of one of these types of organisms would be a starfish. Okay, next is it's in the phylum Chordata, which means it has a notochord. So a notochord is a flexible support rod. It's kind of like the precursor of the backbone. An example of this would be called a tunicate. And then it is a vertebra, so that means that this particular organism does have a backbone. An example of that would be a lamprey. Okay, then next, the organism is a gnathostomiata, and it is going to be something that has jaws. So notice the lamprey does not have jaws, but a shark does. Okay, next, it is in the superclass, so that means it's above the class, Osteichthyes. And so that means that it is a bony fish, such as a clownfish. Next, it is in, I'm not a biologist, so I'm not pronouncing these probably very well, Sarcopterygii. And so this one means it has muscular fins attached to a pelvic girdle by a single articulation. So now it's got fins, and this is important because the fins are eventually going to be able to turn into legs. And so it's in the superclass Tetrapoda, so tetra means four, so it's going to have 4 legs, paired limbs for locomotion. Example is a frog. Okay, now it is a Amniota, so it has a fluid-filled egg like a reptile, or it's in this case like a snake. It's in the class, so now we've gone from phylum to class, so now it's in the class of mammals. It has an enlarged brain and endothermic temperature regulation. So that means if it gets hot, it can sweat, so it can cool down. If it gets cold, it can shiver, so its internal temperature can go up. It's a primate, so now we're talking about orders. It's a primate. So primates have enhanced vision and opposable thumbs. So can you guess what I'm getting at here? Okay, so then the next is a family. So it's in the family Hominid. And so it has a robust body, opposable thumbs, no tail. such as a chimpanzee. And then it's in the genus Homo, so it is habitually erect, so it stands erect, has ability to make tools like the Neanderthals. And then finally, the species is sapiens, meaning that it has a rounded brain case, a narrow pelvis, and the ability to wear business suits. So that's what we belong to. All right. So we've talked about geology, and we've also talked about biology. So it's high time that we start getting back to astronomy. So come back in our next segment, and we're going to talk about what kinds of planets are we looking for to colonize.